always enjoy our visits. I don't know how I could feel any other way than joy every time we get together.
Me too.
Yeah, good, huh?
So yeah, like I was saying, I feel like I got to a point earlier this week where I was just like, when are these emotions not going to necessarily stop? It's just been like such a roller coaster, and was thinking like maybe I need to go to the doctor, or like, what's going on? And I realized that I started the Venus sequence because I was re-listening to my my SQ, and that's the final or the sphere before the core wound in the Venus sequence. And like Richard Rudd just really talks about like this is a very courageous path to really go down. And not many people go down this path because it's a very personal path. It's very lonely. And that's a lot of that has been coming up for me lately. And then I realized like the past few months as I was going through my sequence, and I'll share my screen really quick just to so here is the sequence. So I started off with the 64-6, and this was kind of like the beginning of my journey when I just felt like my entire life crumbled underneath my feet back in September. And I didn't get out of bed for a week. I lost 10 pounds. Like I was a total mess. And that was, that's when I started my journey through the Venus sequence. And so I started off with the 64-6, which is like, there's confusion. And as I was going through and reading about this sphere and listening to the audios, it was all about patience and like wading through the confusion and, just not rushing it. And then going into and journeying into the sphere of attraction, which is all about harmony, equilibrium and corruption, and seeing like basically going deep into my shadows and saying these are the types of relationships I attracted, and this is why, and this is karma that I needed to work through in this lifetime, and creating a more expanded awareness around that. And then traveling over to the IQ, which is where it's your intelligence quotient. So this was a very deep wound for me about like really closing off my heart. And the fifth line is all about like being more intellectual. And this was when I really started to get into the meditations and doing the tapping and creating like this daily statement and listening to the gin tapes and being like, oh wow, this is where my mindset was created from ages, what is it, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21. I think that's what it is. So your teenage years basically is where your like mental state and attitude and stuff is formed. And so that's when I started that kind of like reprogramming my brain type stuff. And then journeyed over to the EQ, which is the emotional quotient. And that's when I really got deep into the tapping and learning how to really regulate my emotions. And then from there I journeyed to the SQ, and this was like when I left Ohio 2 weeks ago. And when I journeyed into the SQ, I felt like this was a very, very big wound that I was going to have to tread very gently and softly with. Like I knew it was something really, really big. And so I decided to kind of take a step back and just kind of like take some time to sit with myself and to be alone. And between the SQ and the core wound, like at the end, this is where you kind of like really journey inwards and you be alone and go into this core wound and you really look into it. And so I just wanted to share that because it's been this journey of like going through the Venus sequence and not even really being conscious, but like working through these shadow aspects and stepping more into the gift and reprogramming the brain, learning how to work with my emotions better, retreating when I needed to, and just kind of going straight into these core wounds of mine to really get to the core of my heart and really crack my heart wide open. And around the time I was going through the SQ and the core wound. When I got down here to South Carolina, I started dating again. And that was like, that brought up so much for me. And I was like, it makes so much sense because I could feel how closed off my heart was. But it was different because I was communicating my emotions. And like being very open and saying, like, it's like I knew myself more. I was so much more grounded. And honestly, like I've gone on a handful of dates with one guy, and it's been really great. And like it's been very healing for me in that sense because I've done all of this work the last few months. It feels different because I feel like I know myself and I can see where my patterns are, where I close my heart off, or like I can see where old thought patterns or emotions show up based on old wounding, and I stop myself and then I communicate it with the person, and it just feels very different. It feels more mature. It feels very easy. And so it's been really cool to kind of see this process that I've gone through the last 4 months as I've gone through each of these fears and how it's directly reflected in my life. And I'm going over the core wound, the 58.6, which is all about dissatisfaction, and going to the gift of vitality into bliss. And it's all about joy, like finding that inner joy. And the joke is you seek externally for something that's going to make you happy. And then when that fails, that's when you start to seek inward. And even that is futile because you're still seeking. And the dissatisfaction is what causes you to seek. And while that creates innovation and change in the world and within yourself, it's rooted in that dissatisfaction and thinking that your joy and your happiness comes externally. And then the shift to vitality comes from realizing that and kind of laughing at it. It's just like the joy and the bliss is always there. It's like the flower that is in the seed all along. Like it's always there. And so all of this stuff has been so in alignment with my life and like coming up and reflecting back. And the whole time I was just like, nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. And it's been really beautiful to be like, have that holy shit moment of like, wow, this is really, this stuff works. Like when you really go into it and you look at your stuff and you gain this, expanded self-awareness, and you get to really know yourself on a deeper level, and you're not reacting from these old patterns anymore. And so I just wanted to share that because out of everything that I've been doing, I can see how the Venus sequence has really been guiding me through all of this without me even realizing it, until I've been able to step back near the end of it and get more of a bird's eye view of like, wow, this is what's been going on. And it's been so incredibly healing. So, yeah.
Wow. Nina, you have so many emotions that you're going to start perceiving as being an awareness and a thing of beauty, as opposed to listening to anybody telling you that it's anything other than that. I remember I watched our last visit, and you were talking about this very process, and you were saying, and it's working. I'm really working on my mindset, and I'm seeing the shift, and I'm feeling the shift and starting to experience the shift. And I agree with what Richard's saying. This is the kind of process that most people will do everything in their power to avoid, where it's really unavoidable because you either get through the process and heal yourself, or you just slowly die. Or shall we say, leave the body, because you just can't see any point in being in it anymore. I've bounced back and forth between those two positions. I understand them to the degree that they're understandable, but then there's also this incredible statement about it just doesn't make any sense. And that is indicative of the fact that we've been trained to do so much that is so meaningless, while we've been trained to do so little that would be so meaningful. And those of us that are willing to face this head on are going through the kind of experience that you're describing. It's a big deal. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around.
No.
But I do sense that there will be great reward in it. We certainly learn patience in it. There's always a desire to get through it ASAP. It just doesn't seem to work ASAP, does it?
No. And when I got down to South Carolina, I had this deep realization of I was doing all of these things, trying to not necessarily trying to avoid the pain, but really trying to go through it faster and to go through the grief faster. And when I was feeling all this anger and this betrayal and sadness and all of these things. And when I got to South Carolina, it was like I had this moment where I just allowed myself to be honest with myself and realize that underneath all of that was deep, deep love. There was this deep love that I wasn't allowing myself to accept within myself because I was so hurt. And when I really fully allowed myself to grasp that and to be honest with myself about that's what my true feelings were, like it allowed me to move past it. And I was listening to the third line audio. I think I sent that to you from Richard.
You did.
And then I listened to the replay of the Venus sequence course that they had done like 2 years ago. And I don't remember who said it, but they were talking about how the irony of, with your SQ is that you're seeking and you're seeking and you're seeking, and everyone's seeking for the love or that end result, and then they go up the mountain and they do all of that work and they make it to God's door. And once they get to God's door, right before they knock, they have this thought of like, well, I have to give up everything and my memories, like everything, in order to like fully accept what God is going to give me. And so people end up not knocking and they turn around. And so the craziness is that people end up getting all the way up to the point and saying, oh, I'm here and doing all this work, but then they can't let go of the past and they can't let go of that old. But what's the irony is that God's door was never closed. It was always open. So that love was always there. And it did something to me. I don't know how to explain it, but it allowed me to fully like really let go of my past relationship. And because I look back and I realized how many times I had crawled and like climbed and clawed my way to God's door and could not open my heart to receive that love. And I just like broke down and was like, it's a tragedy, quite honestly, and that I got so close, but I couldn't fully let it in. And realizing I couldn't change anything about it, and that I had to be okay with that in order to really move forward, and that I have this opportunity and I have this relationship that I'm stepping into that feels really nice and like really nice man, and I'm approaching this very, very differently with an open heart this time. And I'm not going to repeat that where I'm getting all the way up to God's door and not accepting and receiving that love and seeing it right in front of me. And so that was really something in my mind really, really shifted, where I was able to really let go of that past relationship and really fully see it for what it is, like that, a very karmic relationship that needed to be played out. And feeling grateful for it. Like, of course, there's always going to be sadness that it didn't work out, but I'm not going to chase after somebody that doesn't want to be with me, and I can only move forward. So something that was said in that replay was just like, was something that I wish that I had grasped a couple months ago, but it was much needed. But like I said, this is the SQ, and then going into the court really is about really cracking your heart wide open and seeing where you've been closed off to accepting and receiving that love. And I'm seeing it so clearly, and I'm seeing how to not do it in a way that where my emotions don't cloud how I respond and react to people. I'm learning to ride those waves of emotions with much more grace. And like you said, use the emotions as like a navigation system. Mm-hmm. And I had a moment the other week where I realized that the negative, harsh mental chatter towards myself in my mind was gone. And in its place was a very nurturing mother that was very gentle and spoke very soft and gentle to me. And so when emotions and stuff would come up, I would say, it's okay. Like, it's okay to feel this way. And I would allow myself to feel it, and I would validate every single emotion. And then from there, I would say, okay, you're feeling this way. All right, this is how you've behaved in the past. Is there a different way that we can view this? How is this, rooted in maybe a core wound of yours? And then I would sit there and I would contemplate it, and I would move through that emotional wave. And so I'm approaching my emotions even more differently than before, and basically like reparenting myself. And so anytime something comes up where I might be harsh on myself or I might be judging myself, I say stop, and I say, that's not how I speak to myself. And then I just just say it differently to myself. And so it's been such a huge shift for me on an unconscious level, how I really speak to myself and how I work with my emotions and navigate them. And even in the relationship that I'm in right now, like, I've been communicating like, hey, this is too fast, too soon, or whatever, this is too much. I'm working through this emotional wave and being like, if they can respect it or not. And if they don't, like, that's fine, they can walk away. But like being able to communicate that to the other person and have them actually listen to me and then be given that space was like such an amazing experience for me to have as well. So because I know myself more and I know what my boundaries are and I'm able to communicate them because I've given myself time to get emotional clarity, like, things feel peaceful for me. And they feel right.
I would sense that you're not being motivated by fear in any regard whatsoever, as you may have been consciously or unconsciously in the past. You just won't take that road anymore.
No.
Good thing to trust.
Yeah. So yeah, learning to trust myself and honor that too. So.
Yep, definitely.
So anyways, that's what I've been going through the past 2 weeks that I've been down here. And it seems like I've been living months in 1 week. Like every week, yeah, like a month is like a year for me. I feel like I have moved through so much the last few months.
Yeah.
And it's happening so quickly. And I'm still like, all right, my external reality still kind of feels like chaotic, and I'm still living out of my car in these Airbnbs, and I don't know where I'm going to land, but that's the practice. That's the practice of saying, oh, well, okay, I'm here and I am where I'm at because I've been doing so much inner work. The external reality is still sorting itself out, and I don't need to concern myself with the details of it and just trust that everything's working out. And so,
and that's a piece of work. I know that feeling, and that's a piece of work. Trusting in what you want to see work, not necessarily knowing how it's going to work yet, but just trusting in it.
Yeah, when I started working with plant medicine like 3 or 4 years ago, almost every single one of my ceremonies, my intention was to surrender, to let go of like my grips of control. And let me tell you, that has been delivered in my actual life over and over and over again.
That's perfect.
Yeah, over even the last few weeks, I've reached a whole nother level of surrender. As I've moved into the SQ and the core wound, I can see where I'm just completely surrendering deeper and deeper and moving more into the receptiveness and like femininity of me, and like learning to not do and it's weird. Like it just feels weird, but I feel softer, and just there's less harshness about the energy that I feel that resides within me. And I'm like, I go on social media and I catch up with my friends, and they're like, yeah, we're having our 5th kid, and I just bought a house, and I just got a promotion, da, da, da. And I'm like sitting here feeling like I'm in this deep winter of my life, and everything has slowed down and frozen, and I'm not moving forward or doing anything, when in reality, I'm just softening into this receptive, way of being and living. And it has been difficult for me to see that, because I'm like, man, I'm falling behind, or everyone's going out and accomplishing all these things, and I'm sitting here doing nothing. But in reality, it's like I'm doing so much more right now, even though I can't see it.
I like the description that you're giving. Softness.
Yeah.
And that's what I sense and feel in you and seeing you as well. There's definitely a more relaxed, more open, more softness, more just wonder, like a child. Wonder. I think that's going to lead somewhere good.
Who knows?
And the worry stuff is just the mind at mischief. It's just it ain't going to go away. You're always going to have the thought process, the emotions, the feelings. They're not going to go away. You're just going to learn to be able to be with both of these things and make good consciousness out of them. And that's what I seem to be witnessing here. And it's very beautiful to see. And it's happening with a number of people. But it is a process.
Yeah.
30 some odd years of conditioning is a lot to unwrap.
Yeah, and I tell myself sometimes, I'm like, all right, if this is gonna take a year or 5 years or 10 years, like I love myself enough to sit here in the stillness and the chaos, the eye of the storm or whatever, for as long as I need to, because I will not give up on myself. I will not give up on the woman that I know that I am, and that can and will be for my child or children if I decide to have them. Like, I want to be this person that has done their work and, can affect other people just by like who I am. You walk into a room and people can pick up on that as a 6th sign too. Like, they're going to pick up on that as a role model. And I want to embody that, and that takes years. Okay. Like, I do that. I love myself enough to sit through all of this and to work through it.
I don't think it's a question of time. I think it's a question of clarity and consciousness. So I wouldn't measure your progress by time as much as I would measure it by how you feel and the consciousness that you're choosing to be a part of and broadcast and attract to you. I think you're getting clearer and clearer and cleaner and cleaner and purer about that all the time. And that, not the kind of thing they pin medals on you for, but it's the kind of thing that can be incredibly rewarding over time. And as I say, more about over clarity than it is about time. I don't know what time is anyway, Something we watch little hands go around on circles and we call that time. So what? So what?